So last year I had the itch to play through a bunch of Rockstar games. This includes both games that I knew very little about and never played before, along with some other ones that I've played and seen maybe a bit too much of. There was one game that I held off on playing though, and that's because I thought it would make for an interesting video, and I wanted to set some more time aside for it. You see, Bully sits at this weird middle ground for me, because I've definitely played through this game years and years ago back on the Nintendo Wii of all consoles, but I didn't remember much about it. Do you guys know how you'll watch a cartoon or play a game that you haven't seen in years, but the memories flood back to you as soon as you have that controller back in your hands? I didn't get to experience a lot of that with Bully. But in a way, I think that's actually better because I got to go back into this game with a mostly fresh mind. And to start, I'll tell you what I remember this game as and my general perception of Rockstar Games' games as a 12-year-old child. They were all Grand Theft Auto. Red Dead Redemption was just Grand Theft Auto but in the Wild West. LA Noire was just GTA but in the 40s. And of course they had other stuff as well, like Midnight Club and Max Payne. But as a child, I always knew Rockstar first for their formula of open world games. So, of course in my mind, I just remembered Bully as Grand Theft Auto Light. Grand Theft Auto but you're in a school. It still has the mature humor and attitude of the Grand Theft Auto games. You know, there's still gratuitous violence and debauchery here, but it's been tailored to high school students. Instead of having to worry about cops, you have to be on the lookout for prefects who will come after you for giving some nerds wedgies or wearing clothes outside the dress code. In fact, of all the Rockstar games that doesn't strictly put you behind the seat of a vehicle, this is one of the few that's been rated T for teen. But now, after having played through Bully again, I think it actually does this game a disservice to just call it another Grand Theft Auto clone. There's a lot to talk about with this game, but it's all connected by a very simple to understand plot. It begins with our protagonist, Jimmy Hopkins, being dropped off outside of Bullworth Academy. A private school that's rampant with bullying by cliques so stereotypical, it feels like they were ripped right out of a coming-of-age 80s movie or a Disney Channel TV show. Jimmy is a troubled child who has a history of causing issues for authority and being expelled. So the headmaster of the school gives him a stern talking to, and then Jimmy is introduced to a couple of guys who he becomes, let's say, uneasy allies with. There's Pete, the wimp, and Gary, the power-hungry narcissist who wants to run the school. I'll let you guess which one of these guys ends up betraying Jimmy. After the prologue is over, Jimmy basically makes his goal putting a stop to all the bullying across the school, while Gary focuses more on the opposite. He wants to take advantage of the chaos so he can get into a position where he can basically run the academy. Question: does the title of The Godfather refer to Vito or Michael Corleone? The correct answer is C, both. Jimmy is a nuisance to all of the different cliques, but they all hate each other, and Jimmy too. So the matter of who the bully is in this story is really up in the air. Over the course of the entire game, Jimmy does get the different cliques to like and even revere him, and he claims to do it all in the name of stopping the bullying across the school. But you'll quickly learn that what he's doing isn't much different from Gary. As much as he claims to want to make the school a better place, he also enjoys being the head honcho at Bullworth, even if that means taking it by force. Now, I won't talk about the entire story, but I will say I enjoyed it. I liked all the characters, and I had a fun time with it, despite the fact that the game's entire premise and story feels a bit uninspired and cliche. And you know, when I think about it, there aren't too many Rockstar games with stories that I'm not a fan of. I think Rockstar is always going to excel when it comes to having these rich plots and interesting characters. It's one of the many things that they're only getting more grand with each new game that they release. But that's also kind of what turns me off when it comes to modern Rockstar. Current Rockstar, which is to say HD era Rockstar, just feels a bit too blockbuster for me to enjoy in the same way that I have fun with their older games. But luckily, Bully was released at the tail end of the preceding 3D era, and this game perfectly captures everything I loved about their games at the time, especially when it comes to things like the humor, the presentation, the gameplay. Bully plays pretty straight for an open world sandbox game. You can do all of the expected things. You can run around, you can get into fights, you can make your way across the map in an age-appropriate vehicle. Of course, you have an assortment of different weapons as well, but again, age and theme appropriate ones. So instead of having firearms, you get slingshots and eggs and itching powder and stink bombs. The list goes on. And what's cool about all of these items is, you don't even have to use them strictly for combat. You can just use them to pull off some pranks as well. They really want to put you in Jimmy's shoes here. That's why you can also do stuff like pull the fire alarm or sneak into the girls' dorm. It's a pretty fun time just being a pest to everyone on campus. After you do all the pranks though, just remember to head back to your dorm room and save. Where was I? The combat. Combat is a huge factor in Bully 2, and I really enjoyed it. The hand-to-hand combat in this game feels really nice. It doesn't have the most complex combat system that I've ever dealt with, but everything here works as it should. You can do basic melee combos, you can grapple, you can charge attacks, and the best part of it all is, the combat feels very satisfying. The attacks look weighty, and they have these nice impactful sound effects that really feel like you're giving someone that work. And it did feel really nice to just see your opponent's life bar deplete as you just wail on them.
Are you dying? I'll teach you what it means to be hurt. Oh, please call a cleric.
The weapons were really useful too. As I said before, a lot of these you could just use for gags, but you could get a lot of mileage out of things like the slingshot too. You can actually charge your slingshot attacks, and I want to say it does at least one combo's worth of damage if the enemy isn't guarding or anything. Some enemies have more health than others, so it will require more shots, but there are absolutely students that you can 2 or maybe even just 1 shot with this thing. Personally, I did just opt to use my fist most of the time though, especially after I fully upgraded Jimmy to know more combos and techniques. You can do this by bringing some radio transistors to a hobo who hides out behind the school, or you can actually attend gym class to learn some of the wrestling techniques. The upgrades are kind of essential in my opinion too. All Jimmy can do otherwise is a basic 3-hit combo and a grapple to either pummel your enemies or toss them in a trash can. But no, if you play this game, then go through the effort of doing this bonus stuff just so you can extend your combos and charge your attacks and whatever else. After you get these combat upgrades though, just remember to head back to your dorm room to save the game. And yeah, you can actually attend classes in this game. The game actually operates on a 7-day schedule, which means for each day of the week, you can go to 2 classes of different subjects depending on which day of the week it is. The classes are really just a bunch of different mini-games that your mileage may vary in, but I didn't really have any problems with them except for biology. I hated having to be precise and following these dotted lines, but oh well. And I think it's okay to cheat on these and look at the answers. I think it's in character even. Like, have fun if you want to challenge yourself, but there's no way Jimmy is passing all of math or geography without a little assistance. To pass a class entirely, you will need to return to it 5 different times, but just passing 1 day in a subject will give you bonus effects, which can range from things like the combat upgrades that I just mentioned, to more passive effects like bonus health when you make out with other students, gender notwithstanding, or even just new clothes for you to add to your wardrobe. Speaking of which, I customized Jimmy's look a lot in this game, way more than I usually do when a game lets you change up your outfits. And I think the reason why I ended up doing that so much is because, well, I guess I just got really into role-playing as Jimmy. You know, doing all the fun delinquent stuff, but also all the normal school activities as well. I think Rockstar did a really good job of putting you in his shoes and making you feel like you're an actual student at this school. I mean, you go through an entire school year, you see the seasons change, holidays come and go. You can even take pictures of all the students for the yearbook. It's a lot of fun. The game's entire presentation, from the aesthetic to the soundtrack, is doing its share of the lifting when it comes to getting you immersed as well. I think it's playful in the right ways. A lot of the songs are actually kind of upbeat and make use of instruments like xylophone and synths that sound like theremins, but they'll contrast it with some heavy bass lines or drums. And it all helps to convey that rough but juvenile feeling that I think Bully is known and loved for so well. That same feeling extends to the general look of this game as well. The HUD, for example, uses a lot of colors and has these cartoonish looking weapon icons, which came off as, you know, fun and silly and childish to me. But then there's all this serif text and the school's logo plastered all over the game and these repeating patterns, and it all just felt appropriately academic to me, if that makes any sense at all. I'm not sure how else to say that. The town is also big enough to make for an interesting map and overworld with a bunch of activities and hidden collectibles and whatnot, but it also feels small enough that it's not only not overwhelming, but it also feels like a real believable community. You know, the students hang out on campus, the adults come to the amusement park at night, the dropouts hang out over here on this part of the town. I guess what I'm really trying to say is, I found it really easy to get immersed in Bullworth. It also helps that Jimmy is a not very relatable, but engaging protagonist. As I was saying, he's egotistical, and he goes on a power trip just like anyone else attending Bullworth would in his position. But he has his moments of humility as well, and I think both of those things combined are what make him not only likable, but believable in a lot of the stuff that you can do with him, or scenarios that he gets thrown into. Like, you can do missions where you're just pranking people on Halloween, just like you can do missions where you're breaking your teacher out of a mental asylum, and none of it really feels like Jimmy is out of place here. There's a mission in this game where you get to beat up a bunch of elves and no one bats an eye, but if you attack Santa at all, then your trouble meter goes to max instantly. Why does Kris Kringle get preferential treatment? Do his workers not matter? After you do those missions though, just remember to head back to your dorm room and save. Are you tired of me repeating that yet? Well, I'm sorry, but I can't stress how important it is that you save constantly while playing this game, because it is very prone to crashing. At least the PC version that I played through was. Save after every mission, save after each time you enter a building, save after every time you interact with a student. You never know when this game is gonna crash, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a reliable fix to this issue. It's an older game, so technical issues are to be expected, but as I just said, it's an older game, which means this game doesn't have the luxury of an autosave feature. That's why it's important that you save after every little thing that you do. You really don't want to risk losing any progress. To make matters worse, you can't just save when you want to. You have to be in one of the safe houses or the main school building, which is why I kept saying go back to your dorm room. It's not a permanent fix, but I think the best solution is to just download the mod that lets you save anywhere at any point in time. It didn't really solve the problem of the game crashing, but it did come in handy and lessen the blow. There's also a silent patch for this game, shout out to Silent, that's supposed to help with any of the crashes and other technical issues that you have with Bully. But it didn't really do me any good besides unlocking the frame rate so you can play the game above 30. Of course, that comes with its own share of issues though. If you play the game above 30 FPS, then some missions will be bugged and will require weird solutions like alt-tabbing or mashing buttons unnecessarily. I'm not going to give the game too much flack for this though, because I did modify it myself to play at an abnormal frame rate. Hell, I wouldn't even be surprised if my crashes were a result of playing the game at 60 frames. One second. Okay, so I just played Bully for 2 hours straight with the silent patch installed, but unmodified, and it still crashed. So I'm sorry to say, I still don't know what the issue is when it comes to the crashes. But with all of that said, Bully is a good enough game that I'm willing to overlook the crashes with my method of using the Save Anywhere mod. Maybe the console versions of Bully are better, but I prefer to have everything on my computer if possible. That's also really my only hard criticism of this game, the performance. For everything else I disliked about it, I wouldn't necessarily say they were experience killers. To reiterate, I thought the minigames to pass your classes could be a bit annoying and repetitive, but I don't think they were bad, and I did like a lot of the rewards that you could get from them. The combat also starts without a lot going for it, and it won't really get better until you get some of the upgrades, but it was all still serviceable, doing what it needed to do. And as I mentioned way back at the beginning of this video, the cliques and characters are all cliche, but the game itself is a satire of teenage drama, power hierarchies. It's poking fun at inept authority figures and the elite. Half the entire game is parodying tropes from teen comedies that we're all too familiar with. I don't think it's a coincidence that this game ends with an all too happy ending where everything works out in Jimmy's favor at the end, and he literally kisses the girl while everyone applauds him. All this ending is missing is a record scratch and a time stop so Jimmy can look at the camera and directly address the audience. But that's about all I have to say about Bully. If the premise of Bully sounds interesting to you and you think you'd be able to look past all those issues I just mentioned, then I think this is definitely one that you should pick up. I think this game is one of Rockstar's finest, and it's an insult to your library to not have it in your collection.
We are gonna take over the school!
Remember that promise you made about restoring law and order and improving the school? Trust me, everyone wants a fight.
Bullying? I don't care about bullying! Builds moral fiber! Makes men!
You and your stuck-up, lame-ass school? This school rewards losers and bullies. I just stand up to them.
You are an idiot, Hopkins.
You know what, kid? I like your style. You got guts.
I killed the best! I will beat the rest! You disgust me!
You're just like everyone else, picking on the little man.
I'm the king, Petey! Making little people like you and the morons who run this place eat out of the palm of my hand feels great! That's right, losers! Yeah!
僕ですか?
I'm not like everyone else.